down the gang down the gang Dinle. Hello everybody. If you know what song this was from, drop me a comment so we all know the little in-joke at the beginning of this awesome podcast devoted to answers to some of the most erudite questions I've ever received from a fan of this channel. My hat goes off to Noah Turner, who lives in Pennsylvania and wants to go to Cornell University to study biotechnology and entomology. That is to say, the study of insects and related small animals. Noah was a devoted Patreon supporter, so because he was one of the chosen few, his questions get to be answered. And if you want me to answer similar batches of questions from you in the future, just consider following me on patreon.com. For even as little as $1 a month, you can be one of the chosen people, plus get to see a lot of stuff that nobody else gets to see anywhere on the internet. Aside from that, consider supporting me on Buy Me a Coffee if you like what I have to say, and if you're already supporting me on Patreon, just buy your favorite eccentric a cup of coffee, or consider getting some CM Kozeman merchandise at the merch store. The links for all of these things are in the video description and in the pinned comment below. So with that out of the way, let's go. So Noah wants to go to Cornell University, which was actually my partial alma mater. I was accepted to Cornell University, and for those of you who don't know, it's one of the Ivy League colleges like Harvard, Yale, Columbia. I think it's one of the most based ones. But I did the whole drop out of Ivy League thing before it was cool, and anyways, it's a long story. I won't bore you with it again. But Noah here has some of the most erudite questions I have ever received. They are very insightful. Each answer can be a podcast on its own, and he has over 30 of them. So without much ado, we're just going to get around to answering them. And in Noah's questions, and I hope my answers for them, you will get to see an understanding of what it means to be maybe a young person in the contemporary day and age when, more than ever before, things seem bleak and uncertain. It's the CM Kozeman Gen Z Answers Podcast Extravaganza. Let's go. Go. Number 1. I am part of Gen Z and I am dissatisfied with my generation. Everyone just sits on their ass watching YouTube videos and complaining. I also do a bit of this too. How do you stay offline and stay focused on things that matter? Says Noah. Well, good question. I also have made similar observations about Gen Z and even younger generations. Like, don't get me started on the Gen Alpha kids who are like kids born after 2010. They live on a whole other headspace, a whole other plane. Now let me just have some cookies. Shit is good. If you can believe it, I was born in 1984. God damn. I don't feel a day over 16, but I guess all those numbers and years have to mean something. And for a long time I worked in the advertising and PR industry. I still do actually. And as recently as 2013, companies I used to work for conducted youth polls to, see what the youth is doing, see what the young kids are up to so we can sell them more shit. And in all of those polls, the top feeling experienced by young people younger than 18, used to be boredom. Boredom. Can you believe it? Now, it seems really like a luxury. I mean, there used to be times when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, I would just stand about in a room, just don't look at a screen, just look at the walls or read a book or just exist and vibe. Now I think part of the melody of the current generation, part of the curse of Gen Z, is the complete abolishment of boredom. There's a screen in everybody's hands, sometimes more than one screen, that continually takes up your attention. You have to be always on, you have to be always on it, and it's just like a curse. And it affects many people in my generation too. I mean, nobody is immune to this, and it's just a curse. I don't know. Now on top of this, there are really bleak conditions and an unforeseeable future in much of the developed world about basically the continuation of life standards. I mean, I squarely blame the boomer generation for messing everything up, to be honest. They are like the only generation that not only has more than their kids, but due to some psycho somatic reason, due to some psychiatric reason, they are mostly unwilling to give up their wealth for the continuation of the future. I mean, if there are any exceptions, consider yourself lucky. But yeah, most boomers just hoard everything and they're just gonna like live forever. And when they die, it's gonna be academic. It's not gonna be their problem anymore. So yeah, it's pretty bleak for everybody born after 1984, I think. A pretty bleak future for all of us. But I won't get into that avenue too much because I don't want to turn this into the CM Cosman Doomer stream. But let's go back to the particular question Noah had about Gen Z. How do you stay offline and stay focused on things that matter? Well, in that respect, I'm an eccentric. I never started using a smartphone because I know that my attention span, like I'm like a little cat or a dog, you know. Now, if there's food about, you know, my mind will go to it. Blah, 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 blah. So a long time ago, when these iPhones first started coming out, I thought to myself, you know, limit the interaction and value your own time. Because I think all my life I had this grand strategy about myself that I have to own my time, and well, I can't profit max or money max in my current predicament. So I'd better maximize on my time, on the time that's available to me, the time that's available to my soul and will, if you will, to use as I please. So I went really like, this was like a grand strategy, like every action I took and growing up, every action I am taking, I'm thinking a little bit about that, because what do I do with my time? I devote it to my loved ones, I use it to paint, write, and do creative stuff. Because I realized a long time ago I wanted to be a like creative artist or a writer, but I also realized that creative stuff is a bit like love. If you do it for money, you become a whore essentially, and you just end up unhappy. So when it came to finding a job, I actually became a copywriter. So I actually, despite being artistically talented, I don't design stuff or do commercial illustration. I just do something else that takes up relatively less of my time, and then in the rest of my life I basically try to make more with less. So it's a bit of a like strategy within strategy, you know. I have to be frugal because I want my time. So I have to find some kind of work that I can manage. In order to find more time outside of that work, I have to be frugal. You know, it's like a bunch of snakes biting each other on a tail, like some sort of a conga line, but in a circle, if you catch the gist of it. So if you want to stay offline and stay focused, all I'll say is like, get the machine out of your reach, maybe lock it in another room, put it in a locker, or give it to a friend or something. And then the moment you are not able to use the smartphone or log online, your mind starts working differently. I mean, you will notice that some of your stress will start going off like right away. It will start to evaporate. Because the human mind is not built to like keep track of everything and anything about and be anxious or excited or turned on about anything. And the internet and smartphones have brought a lot of conveniences into our lives, but they've also like made it impossible to be bored. And you need to be bored to be sane, if you know what I'm saying. So this is my approach to this. If you're a Gen Zer, try having one day, just for Daddy Cosman's sake, try having one day without your smartphone. And if you do that, if you have done that, let me know in the comments, see how it made you feel. Certainly, I think there's going to be a pruning of actions is in store for the future. Now, if you look at the past in the 1960s and stuff, you will see lots of pictures and videos of, well, films of people just smoking everywhere. You know, people used to smoke in cars, offices, maternity wards, believe it or not, at the doctors, everybody smoked. Now that got kind of pruned and dialed down a bit. And I believe like if Gen Z survives this mental health epidemic, this mental health pandemic, and it's like this all over the world, like shit you not, like I got friends in the States, in Europe, in Turkey, everybody's feeling a variety of this shit. It's inescapable. So I think in the future, if people survive this shit, there will be a pruning of, let us say, manners, and maybe it will be rude to look at your smartphone in the middle of a subway ride or something. I don't know, something like this I think is coming. People may even go back to clunky desktop computers to socialize. Not because they're better, but because they will need to sit at a desk and like spend quality time with their computer and social media and internet again. So they will be able to cut back on the chaff, on the like junk food time. And you know, all these apps, like I don't know, dating apps, Instagram, Twitter and stuff, Like if some miracle happened and some mega hackers like wiped them all out, people would wake up like that weird Bruce Willis film in 1913 called Surrogates. Go watch that film. It's called The Surrogates. But people in that film spend their whole lives connected to these perfect versions of themselves that are robots, while they like stay in their living rooms in a pajama and with like 3 days of stubbles, and like they look like shit. At the end of the film, all the surrogates get deactivated and everybody like crawls out of their homes like, what the fuck have I been doing for the last decade? That's like an ideal scenario, but who knows how it will pan out. So I hope this was a satisfactory answer. More on Gen Z. Noah says, I find that my generation doesn't have stories or even want to talk to peers anymore. I constantly ask my friends if they have done anything that feels interesting or stupid, and they just say no and go back to watching Instagram reels. See, have you noticed similar things? Any thoughts on the matter? I have noticed similar things. Like, for example, it always annoys me when we're having a conversation with anybody and we think about a dinosaur or a place or something, and it used to be people would Google this. I'm talking about, there's this island named Sardinia. They would Google Sardinia. Now I notice with people that I say, there's this island named Sardinia. Their whole sense of the universe has shrunk down just to Instagram or YouTube. It's not even the internet, it's just these 2 apps or 2 websites, whatever. And it's just so constraining, and it's like a madhouse, They are more compromised by algorithms than they realize. And this happens to smarter people, dumber people, it doesn't matter. And don't even get me started about TikTok. That's just a whole other hellhole, whole other circle of hell. I think it goes back to my previous comments about the curse of Gen Z. If something happened to these apps, if maybe they were mandated by governments to only be open for, 6 hours of the day, or for like from 9 in the morning till 5 in the evening, I think that would do wonders. People would start to socialize again. It's just crazy how easy it is to get hooked on those. Now, I know people who feel suicidal because they don't think their Instagram pictures look great, or they don't have enough followers, and it's just like so sad to watch this happen. I don't know, man. I've always had this thing, and I think some of you would too, that you really need to make things purposefully a little hard for yourself. Like the other week, I just wanted to visit one of my friends in another city. It's called Izmit, by the way. And I am working on a big, awesome video expedition podcast about that trip. But anyways, I wanted to visit another city, okay? Now, I could have just arranged a kind of FaceTime or Zoom call with my friend, or just chatted online. But I took the effort to go there. I woke up early. I packed a bag. I took a messy bus ride, whatever. Then I took a train ride. When you move physically, I think that's the key. Move physically. Do it! As the great American philosopher Tom Cruise would say, do it! Just do it! Move physically! It's kind of silly, and I like being silly, but that really is the gist of the thing. We are used to convenience. Of course, staying at home, imagine you got to do any task, okay? Some sort of essay or some shit. You can write it at home, but at the end of the day, you might feel depressed, especially if it's a beautiful day out there. If you move physically, go to a place, maybe you will not write the best essay, but you will feel better, and you will still write your essay or whatever. It will still be a passable thing. So this is my personal thing, that I always integrate motion into my daily life. It doesn't need to be for a reason. It doesn't need to accomplish anything. I could just go to, I could extend my trip. I want to get some chicken or some shit. I could go to the supermarket next door, or I could order it home straight up. Or I could go to the downtown area and go to the butcher I've been going for numbers of years and get it straight from them. While I'm doing that, I walk around, I commute, I look at people, I notice things. On the bus, I read a paperback book. These are very simple things, and life used to be like this all the time until 15 years ago or 10 years ago. But it sounds like the wildest optimistic fantasy now that I'm talking to you about it. So all I'll say is, of course, there will be constraints, but move physically. That's the thing. I'm not even saying notice. Some people say meet people in person, go out, socialize. That's good too, but if you move physically, those will happen. Base of the pyramid is move physically. And I have noticed similar things about many people, not just with Gen Z, but everybody. I don't know. I don't know. I hope this could help out. Anyways, number 3, how do you surround yourself with people with similar interests as you? I can't seem to find anyone who gives a shit about what I love. Now that's sad. And I did talk a whole lot about moving physically, but in my current city, let me just say, I don't have that many friends or family members or people I love who necessarily share the same interests as me, you know? I mean, I got various interests: science fiction, reptiles, dinosaurs. Like, one of the people closest to me who I really enjoy nerding out, like getting together and talking, is my good friend John Conway, who lives in the UK. I meet with him sometimes, but it's like once every 2 years now, or once every year. Now, I can't meet him all the time, and we actually rarely correspond online. Like, you would expect, like, this guy is like your geek soulmate, so you would expect maybe me to be always like talking, hey man, did you see that dinosaur? But no, actually. But when I meet him, I have quality time. And I got several like friends like this. They're kind of all over the world. The long story short is that you're never gonna really surround yourself with people with the exact same interests. But actually, this is not even the name of the game. You have to surround yourself with people who love you, who care about you. You know, if you're down, they will help you. If you're having a cold day, they will bring you a cup of tea, that sort of thing. And then with them, of course, similar interests will develop. It won't be maybe in the same magnitude, especially if you're into like really niche areas. Like, I mean, you're never gonna be able to discuss centipede biology with your bestie, okay? But then you're gonna have a bestie or a lover or a family member or a wife or husband, and then you're gonna have the bestie you will discuss centipede biology with. So it's a kind of different circles, different orbits. You know what I mean? Now we go back to our old arch enemy, the internet, here at this point, because a good way to surround yourself with such people is actually meeting them online, and you can talk shop with them. But when you talk online, it's also not the same. I will give you this strategy: as much as you can within your means. And if you live in the United States, you're probably gonna be luckier. I mean, if you're interested in centipede biology, there will probably be more people in the States. But then maybe there's some very exciting, quirky people in Indonesia or Turkey too, I don't know. All I'll say is, like, meet these people online, cultivate robust but respectful relationships with them, and when the opportunity presents itself, when you're in the same city as them or something, don't base your whole schedule with them, but arrange to get a cup of coffee with them, see how things turn out. Also, sometimes notice that you may have the exact same areas of interest with these people, but other things in your life may not align. I got a very close friend with like this who might be listening, so like, hello bro, if you're listening. When it comes to science fiction or like obscure French sci-fi comics or many little stuff like military history, tanks, airplanes and stuff, like, we have so much in common. I noticed though in the last year or something that politically we're veering off into slightly different areas, but that's okay too. It's like that great American philosophical film Fast and Furious, where they kind of they kind of like veer off into different paths, you know? But doesn't mean you have to be inimical. It actually makes your friendship more valuable. But just realize that having the same areas of interest is not the same as like being besties with these people or lovers with these people, you know? Another thing I observe in relationships is like, oh man, so bad. We had the same, we like the same music. Why did you do this to me? Maybe you did, but you don't have to like, how should I say, like, you don't have to be lovers because of this. Maybe you never got along to begin with. Or maybe you will find somebody who with completely different areas of interest that you will get really along well with. Different orbitals is all I will say. I hope this stuff resonates with you, everybody, and let me know if you're listening so far. This is just the third question. Oh, but this is so written such from the heart. I can't seem to find anyone who gives a shit about. Oh, now Noah says they're from Pennsylvania, maybe a rural part or a small town, I don't know. Another operative sentence here seems to be anyone who gives a shit. And that's rare these days, huh? Well, I mean, that is rare. I cannot turn this into an available commodity, but I will tell you this. If you have been listening to this channel, or if you just found out about this channel recently, if you write to me, if you feel this way, if you write to me, I will give a shit about you and what you think, okay? I'll just leave that out there. Number 4. Would you say it's worth the cost to fly to London to see TetZooCon, the Tetrapod Zoology Convention? Now let me give it a bit of a background about this. TetZooCon is a convention about tetrapod zoology related issues. That is to say, dinosaurs, living animals, exciting, like basically it's zoology, a popular form of zoology and paleontology. And the TetZooCon has been organized for the last decade by my good friends John Conway and Darren Naish. And let us not also forget Jenny, John's wife, who is like a secret invisible hand behind the scenes making all of this possible. And this event has been taking place in London for the past couple of years, and for the past 2 to 3 years it has gotten really popular. Like a new generation of people have grown up with this event. It's a kind of place to be, and I was very lucky. I was a guest of honor in the 2022 edition of TetZooCon. I was also given a free attendance pass for the 2023 edition, but I could not go because, well, global economic recession. What can I say? Let me take a sip of tea. Oh, man. So, assuming you're an American and you're not unfairly advantaged, if you're interested in popular science and meeting people, making people connections, maybe meeting your favorite paleo artists and like more popular names within the scene, you should definitely consider going to TetZooCon. But if you're interested in like actual cutting edge research, you know, like actual publications of new dinosaurs, new stuff, maybe you should consider going to SVPCA, the Society of Vertebrate Paleontologists, like actual science meetings, science conferences. And there are a number of those organized all around the world, including in Britain. The Brits are really good with the cutting edge of science, even in this day and age. So credit where credit is due. But there are also numerous events like that, like science conventions, like proper science conventions you can go in the United States as well. So if you like paleo art or popular stuff, I've noticed in the last year TetZooCon has become more like entertainment and popular culture oriented. So if you like those kinds of stuff, maybe go there. If you're like actually studying or like want to be or are a scientist, and if you have to choose, maybe choose one of the more technical conventions and scientific events. But yeah, I mean, London is nice. If you fly to London to see TetZooCon, it's a crime not to see more of London. Book a few days on either end of the event and just, you know, see London. Don't just see the museums and everything. Just go to art museums, go to the British Museum, explore bookshops and just vibe in the city a little, because I mean, London is a hard town to live in, but to visit, you know, there are a few other places that are better. So there. I mean, I would want TetZooCon to grow bigger in the future, you know, maybe a multiple day event, maybe a week-long event with maybe separate, simultaneous, concurrent venues for speculative evolution, something going on for art, others for just dinosaur research or vertebrate zoology research. I don't know. I mean, in an ideal world, but yeah, this is up to John and Darren to figure out, not for me to comment from the sideline. Well, yes. Number 5. Do you have any whimsical skills that most people do not know of, like yo-yo juggling, etc.? Well, I'm a world-class expert whistler. If you've been following this channel and especially my live streams, you would hear that. But like I have perfect pitch, like I can do a vibratio effect. Like let me just get some tea in me, because like I can whistle like this. Her telefona sen çık. But it's a great song. But yeah, I'm a great world-class whistler. It would have sounded better if I hadn't been talking non-stop for half an hour before that, but yeah, I can do like, I can also do all sorts of whistles. Plus I am double jointed. I can do all sorts of party tricks, like my hands can rotate 360 degrees. I can like hold a chair and run a circle around it without letting go. My toes are hypermobile, so like I can do like These are all coming from my toes. Like I can click my toes within my feet. The bones move there like tuck, tuck, tuck. Like the locking breech action of a old style rifle, so to speak. And I used to use this to such an effect. So in primary school, I would gather my friends around the table because I could do this. Like I can give a middle finger with my feet. And also one of my feet is like monstrously bigger than the other foot. So there's another thing. So I would gather my friends around the table and like I would prop my toes against the table leg. So we would turn off the lights and I would say, "Oh, spirit of Nur Absal, if you are here, just give us a knock." And then I would go with my toe. Because they would not know I had this ability. So I went, fuck, what the heck? No, what's happening? Nur Absal, if one of us is going to die, just knock twice. And then I would go with my feet. Oh fuck! Then they would be really scared. And then, like, depending on who I hated the most at that night, I would say, "Nur Absal, count the letters to the name of our friend who is going to die soon." So if his name was beginning with E, I would go to like A, B, C, D, E and stop. And the kid whose name started with E would like have fucking nightmares. Yeah, that's a skill. I was a cruel but creative kid. What can I say? Oh yeah. And when it comes to stuff like yo-yo juggling, I don't know. I'm not very well coordinated on those. But yeah, I'm a good wrestler and a kind of a freak with hypermobility. So there. Number 6. Did you have a favorite creature to see at the zoo when you were younger or currently? Well, when I was younger, I grew up in the Turkish city of Ankara, so there was a big zoo there, but I don't have many memories. I always liked the reptile house and the aquarium, and like I think that's my go-to place. Not a specific creature, but like any room with many aquariums in it or terrariums or reptiles in it, like reptile room stuff, like I'm a sucker for those. Always have been, always will be. So there. Number 7. Oh, this is a good one. This is a kicker. Noah says, "I always feel I talk too much. Do you do this? And if so, how do you nod this without seeming annoying or seeking attention?" Now, I am a overbearing personality in life. Like, I am like one of those cockatoos or like those little birds who like jump in your hand and continuously like and like, but let me just say, like, in the middle of my 20s or something, I realized that, wait a minute, I mean, all I'm talking to people is about myself, and goddamn, nah, when I interact with people, I have this desire to like talk and interact with them as much as I can. So I realized this was an area of improvement, let us say, if not a character flaw. You know, I would always think about like somebody would say I saw a snake, and then I would say like, oh, I know this snake and I've been that. Somebody said I went to the seaside. I was like, oh yeah, I went to the seaside once. God damn. But people are it's very hard not to come across as selfish. So I realized I'm also like a good reader of people's attitudes. Like I can sense if they're sad or if they've got something in their minds. So I retooled that part of my thinking. I would still talk a lot, but before saying anything, I would say, how are you doing? What are you feeling like? Is anything wrong? How did that thing happen? Like let people know you care. You don't need to be like too much in their hair about it, you know? But like ask them questions and satisfy your talking instinct that way. Also, if you have close friends and stuff, it's also a nice kind of practice to just sit together with them for like half an hour. Don't say anything until they ask you how are you feeling, how you are feeling. Now that way, you kind of discipline your trigger finger, so to speak, and also you realize whether the other person really cares about you or not. So there, sometimes silence really is golden. Of course, you will have your character, but I would say like if you're a talkative person, always like kind of marshal your words. Try not to say too many things about yourself. Just ask and listen and respond. That's the way to carry on a conversation. When you get used to it, you will see people like the way you used to be, and then you will like, you will say, I was so silly. God damn. Well, it's that sort of a thing. It's hard to like, especially if you think faster than people or maybe you are smarter than them, it's hard to not come across as annoying. But then the people who like you for who you are will be your true friends, so, you know, stick with them. You don't need to be appreciated by everybody. Alright. Number 8. Have you heard of tempura paint sticks? They are kind of like painting with a glue stick. Wow, I need to look this up. Recently I acquired a lot of oil sticks, which are just oil paint, which is just oil paint compressed into stick form at great expense. I spent like a number of days painting with them. They're really fun, but they're extremely messy. Let's see what these tempura paint sticks are like. So just give me a second. Okay. Whoa, these are cool. They look just like wax crayons, but they're chunkier and nicer. I don't know, I could use these. Thanks for recommending this to me. They're water-based too, I guess. I should get me some of this, because I am painting more on canvas these days. If you don't know, I'm also a surrealist painter. I'm always looking for something to do the chunky line with, and then when the line dries, I would use acrylics or watercolors to fill in the spaces. So that's a nice recommendation. Thank you so much, Noah Turner. One more question. I like to stand out from other kids at school. Do you have any other stories of times you stood out from other kids at school? Oh boy, I guess you're a bit like me. I don't know. I mean, look, I was always the kid with the big repository of interesting and weird information, and I just could not keep it in my pants. You know, I just had to share it with everybody and anybody. And I will go out and say, like, this is a cool way to go and develop until you're maybe like 25 or something. Then you need to retool your social skills and like aim more towards listening. But yeah, in high school, it's good to be like this, but if I could do things all over again, maybe try not to come across as too self-involved, you know. It's a complicated thing, I know, it's hard to pull off. But I also had a good memory, and I mean, there were times when I stood out from other kids in many ways. And one of these times were like, they made us take SATs, you know. SATs are these American-based exam for like high school aptitude and shit. And I remember like completing the exam in like at least the English speaking section of the exam less than half the time it took for anybody else to even begin to finish it. I just walked the fuck out, you know, just like that. A few weeks later, the results came in. I scored the top score in the country. They called my parents. They said, this is a miracle. Has he been cheating, actually? How could I cheat? I was reading a lot. So I knew just where the words went. And that was like a big success. And like, I remember it kind of like made me famous or infamous in the school. Of course, I also had many sociopathic tendencies too. I was scared of girls. I used to spit on girls if they came close to me or wanted to socialize with me. I was like, which is also weird because when I grew up, at some parts of my life, I was also a notorious womanizer. But it's just the way I grew up. I had like zero contact with girls. I know I did not want any contact with girls until the final year of high school. At which point I had isolated myself to such a degree. I had no friends. In fact, bullies would like try to beat me up. And like recess was a protracted game of cat and mouse between me and the bullies. If the weather was nice, I would run away to the fields outside the school, where I would catch lizards and snakes and look at insects and have the best time of my life. Imagine the weird mind space I must have been in. Catching snakes, running away from girls, having genius level scores, at least in some classes, and then just being a general like weird person overall. In arts classes, I would also like attract people's attention with like how quickly I could create really nice and convincing artworks. So I was a bit of a piece of work, what can I say? And this always made me stood out, but not necessarily in the best way, you know? And people would think I'm like mentally challenged or I had Down syndrome or something. I don't know how they came to that conclusion. Oh well. But at the final year of high school, I was so interesting that I actually made a girlfriend, and then I realized, wait a minute, there's this whole like, imagine like you're in war, okay? An endless war that is the war of life. Suddenly, you discover that air power is a thing. And then it's I was like mentally building the equivalents of the best airplanes, you know. I advanced from like spare age to jet plane age in a year, and maybe out to space and beyond if you want to extend the analogy. But yeah, this was the way I attracted lots of attention. And like, you know, I mean, if I could go back to those years, I would probably beat myself up, because I had a lot of cringe things about myself too. If I could do it all over again, maybe I would not try to distance people as much as I used to from myself. And I really, like, I would have told to myself, back then, hey kid, what you looking at? And you never seen a baseball bat? I would say like, take me back to yesterday, sniffing glue and getting laid, everything was a-okay, oh well. Anyways, I would tell to my past self, I would tell to him, you don't need to prove anything to anybody, but just ease up, just let go, cause you know what? It's gonna be alright, just let go. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. I hope this resonates, Noah. These are really amazing questions, and I hope I could give nice answers, not just to Noah, but to anybody listening. If you have similar stories about childhood, or if you're going through similar issues with childhood, just let me know in the comments. As always, like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and click the goddamn bell icon. And what can I say? It's a troubling time for Gen Z and beyond. I mean, growing up has always been kind of troubled, but yeah, this time round we're having it so unfair, just give us a fucking chance. And then we will continue with Noah's questions in following episodes. Thank you so much for listening and have a nice day. This has been CM Kozaman. Goodbye for now.